Hello everyone. My name's Mike Letnic. I'm an ecologist, a wildlife ecologist at University of New South Wales. And me and my team, we head out to the bush all over the country and we're really concerned in lots of studies at the conservation of animals and plants in our environment. We work on crocodiles, snakes, small mammals. We've even worked on Komodo dragons. And today I'm going to talk to you about invasive species and some of the problems of invasive species in Australia. So you've probably all heard about rabbits in Australia, and we've had these terrible problems with rabbits invading the country. They were let go about 150 years ago and took over the country. We've got lots of other invasive species as well that are having devastating effects in our environment. Camels, feral pigs, and probably one of the worst is the red fox, which has wiped out a lot of our native animals. It's been a real tragedy, the effects that these invasive species have had. But today, I'm going to talk about another one, the cane toad. Who's seen a cane toad or played with cane toads? Why are cane toads such a big problem in Australia? Is it because they're ugly? No, it's actually because they're poisonous to our native animals. So our native animals have evolved on an island in isolation, and they just don't have what it takes to survive eating the poison in cane toads. So cane toads, their skin, like the skin of all frogs, is full of, often got poison in it. And cane toads in particular have these big glands up here called the parotid glands, and they have lots of poison in them, and our animals are naive to that poison. They just haven't got the enzymes to deal with that poison, and it's caused terrible problems for our wildlife. So I'll just give you a bit of a history of cane toads. Cane toads were brought to Australia as a biological control. They were introduced to Gordon Vale in North Queensland in 1935, and they were brought out here and taken to sugar farms with the purpose of eating a beetle that they thought might help the farmers by getting rid of the beetle. It turned out they didn't eat the beetle, but what cane toads have done is that they've slowly spread across the country. Well, hopped across the country mainly. And so in 1975, the cane toads had got to here, over mostly in Queensland, maybe just at the edges of New South Wales. In 1995, there was populations of cane toads in northern New South Wales down as far as Port Macquarie. Who's been to Port Macquarie? And they were pushing over to the Northern Territory as well. You can see on this map, there's little outliers, little cane toads have jumped ahead. Does anyone know how they've got there? Are they ones that are extra fast? How do they get there? They hitchhiked. So they caught lifts in trucks or in cars, so in pot plants and things like that, and they've turned up all over the country. And that's part of the way that they've spread, is these hitchhiker toads. 2015, they'd moved across the Northern Territory. And if we look where they are now, this is where they are now. They're over in a lot of the Kimberleys and Western Australia, and they've well and truly established in New South Wales, and there's hitchhikers popping up everywhere. Thankfully, most of the hitchhikers get caught and taken away, and they're not really establishing. But they're a terrible problem. Does anyone know what this animal is? It obviously likes eating cane toads. What is it? What sort of crocodile is it? A freshwater crocodile. That's right, it's a freshwater crocodile. So we have two species of crocodile in Australia. We've got the freshwater crocodile, which is a small crocodile. It only grows to be about 3 metres long. Does anyone know how 3 metres long and how small that is? It's pretty small. Not really. Anyway, freshwater crocodiles just snap at anything that goes past and try to eat it that they can tackle. And, they'll have a go at cane toads. So we and my team, we've been looking at the effects that cane toads have had on freshwater crocodiles in the Victoria River in the Northern Territory. And we go out and we count crocodiles, and we've been doing this since before the cane toads came and for 20 years afterwards. And we count crocodiles like this. You might have to, hopefully you can hear this. We drive down the river in a boat at night with a spotlight, looking for crocodiles. And while we're doing that, we're also counting cane toads on the riverbanks. And sometimes there's a lot.
I'll let you go in.
So if you're a crocodile and you just snap at anything that moves, it's pretty irresistible to to have that in your backyard. When we're doing our surveys, sometimes we find these guys as well. This is a saltwater crocodile. That's just a little one. It's probably about 3 metres long, and they grow to be much bigger. And these are the crocodiles that can be really dangerous. So we've got to be very careful when we're doing our surveys. Anyway, that's a salt. Well, for short, we call them salties, but salty is a terrible name for them because they live in fresh water as well. And so when we're doing our surveys, we find crocodiles and we count them. What's he got? Toad? He's got a toad. So this guy's caught a cane toad on the edge of the riverbank. And up close, it looks a bit like this. So that's a little freshie. He's about this long. And he's caught a cane toad about that long. And what I want you to look at here is you can see his gland here. This is his parotid gland on his shoulder. And can anyone see the white stuff coming out? Does anyone know what that white stuff is? What? Poison. And so this crocodile, he might swallow the cane toad whole, but he could even get a fatal dose of poison just by swallowing some of that. And it's pretty unfortunate, very sad, that not long after the cane toads arrived, we started finding lots of dead crocodiles. So this guy's about 2 metres long. He's longer than me. And we found lots of crocodiles like this in the river. I can show you this later. We also found lots of their bones where crocodiles had died on the river as well. And it was very sad. Anyway, part of our job for our studies was to work out how the crocodiles died. And so we cut open a lot of these dead crocodiles to see what was in their stomachs, to see if they'd eaten cane toads. Hold your noses. What do you think that smelled like? I asked the people organising this if I could bring a little bottle of that smell, but they told me that wasn't allowed. Anyway, there was lots of dead crocodiles around, and most of them had cane toads in their stomach, like this one. So it's a bit nasty, but we opened that one up, and he had a cane toad in there. To get an idea of how bad the problem was, we got a helicopter and we flew along 70 kilometres of the river one day. And in that 70 kilometres, we saw 40 dead crocodiles just on one day. So if you can imagine, in the Victoria River, it's about 800 kilometres long, and who can do the math? They can tell me how many dead crocodiles there might have been. It's a lot of dead crocodiles, and that's just on that day. So it's been a really terrible thing for the crocodiles in the Northern Territory that the cane toads have come along. But the freshies, as I like to call them, they're still hanging on. There's about a quarter the number of freshies now than there were 20 years ago, but they're still hanging in there, and they seem to be learning how to live with toads. We hope that their numbers will come back, but time will tell, because they're very slow breeders. But I'm going to finish there because there's another crocodile. The other crocodile in the Northern Territory is a saltwater crocodile, and they get a lot bigger than freshies, and this is the dangerous crocodile. You definitely don't want to run into one of these by mistake. And we've got one here. Kev's got one, a little baby salty. And you can have a look at these guys later. So this is a saltwater crocodile?
Yes, this is our little saltwater crocodile. His name is Sir Chomsalot. He's around about 3.5 years old, so he's still got lots of growing to do. He'll grow maybe up to, well, 6 metres long, but that'll take 30 or 40 or 50, 60, 70, 80, maybe 90, 100 years. They can live for a very long time. But at the moment, yeah, I wouldn't class him as dangerous, but we've still put some special tape on his mouth. That's just to protect everybody's fingers. He can bite harder than a dog can, even at this size. Yeah.
And actually, I'll get Kev to show you something. Oh, he's there. He's there, that's all right. See on his back here, he's got all these really hard scales. So the belly of the crocodile is really soft, but his back's really hard, and they've got it's a little bit of bone in his scales. It's called an osteoderm. Do you want to talk about?
Just hold that bit, just at the end, just to hold his tail. There we go. And I do have an osteoderm in my pocket, and this is from an adult crocodile, and from a very large 5.5 metre crocodile. This is the bone that is actually in their skin. It's surrounded by cartilage, so it makes up a big square pattern that you'll see on the back of the crocodile. Actually works as a suit of armour. And it's probably not so much important today, because the only thing that'll really go for a crocodile, like a big crocodile, is other big crocodiles. But this species has been around for about 60 million years. So they were living with bigger animals, dinosaurs, and other bigger species of crocodiles. So that's when this layer of protective bone would have come in very handy. But today, like I said, not much will take on a big crocodile. A little crocodile like that, maybe a dingo, goannas, eagles, all sorts of different things. But as they grow bigger, then it's payback time. Yeah.
All right, well, thank you very much. There you go.
Beautiful. And keep that round of applause going as we welcome Professor Mike Archer to the stage.
Get the clicker? Okay, thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Michael. Let's see. Mike Archer. I'm another person in bees. I'm fascinated by animals, not just the living ones, but the extinct ones as well. In fact, I study the extinct ones in order to understand the living ones and even to devise ideas about how to protect them into the future. So it's really important. But look, you got to see this. How many people recognize that man? Hands up. I would hope everybody would have their hands up. It's David Attenborough. And he's been in the same area where we're finding fossils in northwest Queensland. He loves it. He's got very excited about it. And in fact, he's been up to Riversley, which is the World Heritage Area where we work. And we were so proud of what he did. He said that Riversley was one of the 4 most important fossil deposits in the whole world. And in gratitude for being so perceptive, we named a fossil marsupial lion after him. I mean, look at the face. He was so happy. He's been immortalized as a marsupial lion. All right, I want to talk about mostly snakes today, the old ones and the ones we've got today. So let's move on. Here's the problem. Most of the rest of the world thinks Australia is a terribly dangerous place. In fact, they'd probably go nuts with fear just the fact that I'm holding a beautiful python here. And that little silly drawing there says that 1,275 animals in this picture could kill you. And you know that's ridiculous. It's not true in Australia. This is a land of wonderful, friendly creatures. It's just so over-exaggerated. It is true. We have a few little oddies that are a bit challenging, like the blue-ringed octopus. Don't pick them up. Or the Irukandji jellyfish. You've just got a short little while to sort of think about it before you're gone. The funnel-web spiders in Sydney, amazing animals. And of course, there's the odd white pointer. I don't think this is a real picture, but never mind. And don't forget drop bears. Hey, how do you go past drop bears? Photophobic kangaroos. You know, sometimes they're not real happy with you interacting with them. And of course, here's a saltwater crocodile that did not eat a cane toad. He's eating something very healthy for him. That hand, incidentally, was actually reattached to the person who lost it. It's an amazing thing. But salties are incredible. And then we come to snakes. This is the small-scaled snake. It's the inland taipan, Paradomantia microlepidota. It is the most venomous snake in the world. Toxicity per cc of venom is unbelievable. They called it locally. I found this thing in Central Australia, that one. And in fact, the locals knew about these snakes because some people had been bitten, and they called it the one ciggy snake. You had time for one cigarette after you were bitten, and then you were gone. So yes, we do have some fairly frisky animals. You can't forget, when you dip into the fossil record, we've had some pretty weird dudes around before the modern world, like we actually did have a carnivorous kangaroo, a kangaroo that ate animals. We didn't believe that, but it's in our fossil record in Riversley. And drop bears are a real thing. We actually had fossil drop bears. They're not around anymore. And this is the most amazing thing. It's kind of a joke. People talk about drop crocs. Well, we actually had drop crocs. We found a group of crocodiles that specialized in living in trees in those ancient rainforests in Australia, and they jumped out of the trees like leopards on prey. So most amazing animals. And of course, don't forget, Australia had the biggest lizard that has ever evolved anywhere in the world. This is Megalania, and that also, because we know it's a goanna, it had venom. That makes it the biggest venomous animal that ever lived in the world. We come back to snakes. And before I go into snakes again, I just want to ask, how many people here have a pet snake? Anybody? Well, how many people would like a lovely pet snake like my friend? That's what I want to say. That's so important. Bonding with our native Australian animals is one of the major keys to conserving them into the future. All right, but look at this guy. Look at this. This is a beautiful python. But here is a Komodo dragon. And note something. Look at the tongue of the Komodo dragon. It's quite interesting. It's forked, just like a snake. And those goannas, all the goannas in general, are the source for snakes. Snakes evolved from goannas. And goannas also have venom. Not a lot, but a little bit. Okay, when we look in the fossil record about snakes, nope ropes. I love that. Danger noodles. There's a few names for these things. But here's the oldest first snake ever found. It came from Brazil, and we're talking about 100 million, 110 million years ago. And look at this cute dude. He's actually got hands and legs. So this is a kind of a missing link that's been found between lizards and between snakes. So we're finding out a lot from the fossil record about these guys. And even within pythons, this beautiful python, which actually, he's got his own decisions about where he's going to go in my jacket here. This is a woma. It's an inland, in many areas, critically endangered python, and it is so beautiful. You can buy them on the web, actually, if you go out on Google. But look if you actually x-ray a python, you'll find inside the python there are remnants of a pelvis and the hind legs. And in fact, if you could see it, and I'll have him around, if you want to have a look at him after I'm talking, after we're done, I'll be able to show you the little bits of hind legs that he's got sticking out from the rear end. All pythons have them. And it's pretty amazing. It's a reminder that they came from four-footed animals. Okay, a little bit of footage. What is Riversley like, this place that's producing all these incredible fossils? We're in northwest Queensland here. Every year we've been going up here chasing fossils from 25 million years ago all the way up to the present. A beautiful fossil record, and the treasures that are coming out of this area are amazing.
Here we are in one of the most arid, remote areas of northwestern Queensland. This part of Riversley, this very precious place, has given us an extraordinary look at how the whole continent has changed over the last 25 million years. I had a PhD student, Ned Stevenson, who was very good at remote sensing. He worked out that you should be able to actually, potentially, find fossils from satellites. And he came back very excited, and so were we when we saw his map, and they're way beyond the World Heritage fossil deposits with the same signals in areas we had never gone before. Probably no European had ever set foot before. What was in those areas? We dropped down in a couple of the spots bang. Phil Creaser got out of the plane, or out of the helicopter, and there were fossils on the spot where he dug, and it's right where we're standing now. But as we started to dig into it, we found teeth coming up. Now, one of the first things that struck us as remarkable was that the teeth were very worn. This is so unusual for Riversley.
My job out here is to help the team collect and identify the fossils that are coming out of the sites, and trying to keep all the pieces together, because obviously things break during the collection process. I would love to find a skull of really any mammal, or any animal actually, a bird, one of the birds, or even one of the crocodiles, a new animal, and would be fabulous. That's really what we would look. That's what I'd love to find.
And that's what we found. We have found hundreds of thousands of wonderful fossils, all the ancestors for kangaroos, koalas, everything coming out of these fossil deposits. And here is a gigantic snake. This is the biggest python that ever lived anywhere in the world, 10 meters. And just to give you some idea how big this is, that backbone there is from an Indian reticulated python. That's the largest snake living today in the world. And this is Anyway, the fossil that we found is obviously much bigger than that. So we've had huge snakes in Australia. It's very exciting. And I mentioned that we had drop bears. Well, we've even found very interesting situations as we dissolve the limestone that contains these fossils. There's a giant snake backbone with all of its ribs. And inside, we found what may have been its meal. It contained drop bear claws. So there must have been terrible battles going on in these ancient rainforests in Australia. Most of our snakes, however, particularly today, are really nice. Unlike saltwater crocodiles, they don't eat you, and some of them are the sweetest guys you could ever meet. We love them. And this actually is a Woma python here, just to give you some idea. Woma pythons are a little different than other pythons. Here's what a normal python's face looks like. And you see along the lips, it has these weird little pits. Those pits enable those pythons to actually see heat. So they actually, why do they have to be able to see heat when they're hungry? Well, the obvious reason is they got to find warm-blooded animals. So they use those heat-sensing pits to find where the rodents are that they want to gobble. Well, Woma pythons are different. These guys don't have pits there. And one of the reasons for that is, what do they eat then? Well, interestingly, they eat other snakes. So they're not chasing normally warm-blooded prey. They will eat rodents. And in fact, I've had this guy for 20 years. And what we've convinced him to eat now is dead rats. So he's given up his diet of snakes. And that's very convenient for us, I must say. So, bottom line, as far as I'm concerned, snakes, nope ropes, whatever you want to call them, danger noodles, are the most wonderful animals in the world, and we're so excited to find their ancestors as well as work with the living animals. Now, I asked you before how many people wanted to have a pet snake. I'm going to ask you again how many people want to have a pet snake. I've got another 20% increase there. I'm a success. All right. You'll be able to interact with him afterwards, and I think that's it for us. Okay. Thank you very much.